health is. This isn't what I see the body doing to help itself. Fall back real quickly to high school. I think we had our first um, career fair when we were in like third form, and I met Dr. Norman Kramer, and he was the chiropractor on island at the time. And while we were there, he was like giving assessments, and he assessed my spine, and he's like, "Okay, you have this problem, this problem, this problem." I said, "How did you know that?" And he explained that alignment in the body can trigger disease. And that was amazing to me. And the other thing about culture is I grew up poor. I was dirt poor. And he told my mother, he's like, "I'll treat her." Because I used to have like really bad headaches. And he's like, "I'll treat her for free." And so I used to go to Dr. Kramer, and he would, I'm curious. So he's telling me all about chiropractic, how the body has its own healing properties and that kind of thing. And that always stuck with me. So when I got to college and I was like, okay, I'm going to go study medicine, and I'm looking at medicine, it's like, this is not my idea of health. And my advisor at the time said, "Why don't you do physical therapy?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what that is. Never heard of it." And so I was able to observe a physical therapist. I'm like, yeah, this is more in line with what I see health and what the body can do in terms of healing itself. And so I followed that track, and I've been a physical therapist for 20 years. So am I taking up too much time? Because
No,
that's
not
a
at
busy.
all, not at all. This is exactly what we want. I'm thoroughly enjoying the journey, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. And I don't even remember. It's so interesting how we remember things differently, because that career day was so meaningful for you. And I think I was in fourth form that day, because I only have
Yeah.
a memory really of one career day when I was in high school, because I guess in fifth form, you're doing studying for your CXC exams or whatever, and it started, I believe, when I was in fourth form, based on your story. So
Right, because
I
you're a year
a
ahead of
year
me. So I
ahead,
was in
yeah.
third form. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and
So
I just remember that there was the fire department also came to Career Day for people to look at that as a profession within that fire and rescue service. And one of the officers I remember was particularly good looking, and people were very excited about that. And then also some students attempted to set some of the grass that had just been cut for the Career Day on fire so that it could be put out. So my experience of the career day, not that I was, just disclaimer for all our listeners, especially my parents, I did not set any fires, and I was not, hanging around the good looking fire officer. That's just what I remember. That's just what I remember was happening around me. So Nadia, it to me is just so amazing sometimes how
mm,
people can be in the same moments and have a totally different experience of it. And yours was a life changing experience. I don't even remember Dr. Kramer being there, and I know him, So when you
mhm.
said that, I was like, oh, he was there. So
He was
yeah,
there. He was
amazing.
right at the front. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I years later, because like the way I practice now, I'm not a chiropractor, but the way I practice now involves a lot of chiropractic principles, because again, it relies on the body's natural properties to heal itself. And so a lot of physical therapy, exercise based, all that good stuff. But the way my mind works, I go with alignment first. So I go with
Okay.
the spine first. And so again, the pelvis. So I go with that, and then I work my way out. And so it's been a very successful practice. And just one day, 30 something years later, I was like, I have to thank Dr. Kramer. And so I reached out to Miss Amini, who again was our social studies teacher, who's his sister. And I'm like, I need to thank him. And she's like, "Oh, he's fine. He's in Canada." She gave me his number, and I reached out to him. I said, "You probably don't remember me, but like 35 years ago, we met, and you told me about chiropractic, and that has shaped my life." And so that's the thing, is like moments happen when we're young, and then 30, 40, 50 years later, we link back to them. And so I guess I'm trying to tie this into heritage. It's like the community way that we raise children, the way that we offer our services to each other. You never know how that will impact somebody's life 30 years later, because there's a lot of moments that I can go back to in elementary school, junior high school, all that stuff, that has totally shaped the way I am today. So I'm very thankful to all of the people in our community. I have so many mentors that have guided me up to this principle, to where I am now. And recently, again, so thank God most of them were still alive, I was able to say, "Hey, thank you for what you did 30 years ago." It's finally blooming now. So I really, I love our community for that.
That's amazing. And do you feel that you've carried some of those values with you? Because I see the work that you're doing on social media, for example, in terms of sharing story with people via social media as it relates to the knowledge that you've gained, as it relates to pelvic health, as it relates to your practice. And would you see that as an extension of that kind of giving environment within which you were raised and doing it now in this way, because as times have changed, you have different platforms through which you can do that same type of mentorship and provide
Oh, most
guidance?
definitely. Most definitely, because I am one of the very few pelvic floor therapists of color. I always say I'm like the black uniform, the unicorn. Whenever I go someplace, you don't really see too many people of color in this space, and that's actually one of the things that we need to talk about,
Right.
because culturally we have, been so quiet about this area of health, women's health, men's health, and we in general do not approach that area. And I like when I started studying and learning exactly what pelvic floor dysfunction was, I'm like, okay, my mom had that, my sister had that, my brother, I was like, I was looking at all, I'm like, wait a minute, like I need to tell everybody. And so even during COVID, the my big idea during COVID, we were here and we couldn't really work physically. And as a physical therapist, it's a hands-on practice. It's like, how are you going to work if you can't be within 6 feet of somebody? And I literally, we stayed open for a while, and I would literally put my hands behind my back and try to explain to a patient what I wanted them to do. And it actually worked.
Oh, wow.
And it even got to the point where we went to remote telehealth. I'm like, you know what? This thing could actually work long distance. And, during the course of COVID, I'm like, I'm going home because my people need this. You know, the people who were coming to me look like me. And the people who looked like me when they came to me, they had been suffering for so long. And there's so many times, like, I always make sure I have a full box of tissue in my office, because inevitably they're going to cry. Because they'll be like, why didn't anybody tell me about this? Why didn't I know about this? Why only now, after X amount of surgeries, after X amount of tests, after all of this? And so I felt, I don't think obligated, but I felt the need to share this information because we all need it, and it will make our community so much stronger.
Yeah, so perhaps called, not obligated, is the word that came to mind as you
Okay,
said that. So,
thank
yeah.
you. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
most
and
definitely.
like what you're sharing with us now is raising a lot of questions for me, and I'm sure that we'll have similar questions from others. But you're using a lot of terms that we're going to have to break down. So, pelvic floor therapist, what is that? Pelvic floor disruption, what does that mean? Maybe even what's the difference between a physical therapy and physiotherapy, or is there no difference? Because that's something
It's
that
the
we're
same thing.
seeing popping
Yeah,
up
it's the
more and
same
more
thing.
in our treatment landscape as well. So I'm going
Mm.
to switch to Anna for a bit to hear from her and then come back to you, Nadia. So, Anna, this retreat that you're engaged in co hosting or hosting with Nadia, it draws on a lot. It appears, I should say, from what I've read of it, to draw on a lot of what Nadia just shared. But within your own story, you have, as I was saying earlier, you have quite the history within your family of passing down strategies for healing and remedies, and that you have shared very openly with anybody. I would say, in my experience of coming to you often for remedies and guidance, you share it very freely and willingly. So can you share with our listeners a bit about your story, a bit about your journey, how you got from that kind of first step all the way into where you are now, where you've been in business for so long, you've traveled so many parts of the world, and you share knowledge with so many people locally, regionally, and internationally. So tell us a bit about all of that, please, Anna.
The sharing wasn't new. The sharing I grew up seeing, um, going both ways. We sharing with others, others sharing with us. I've grown up with stories from my mom talking about how her grandmother was the person people came to in the neighborhood when they needed stuff. She would go farm and she would rack stuff. There was stuff that was for the house, stuff for the neighbors on both sides, and then stuff for the general community. Right? So the sharing was something that was ingrained in me, I think. Well, ingrained in us, I think, because it was something that was always happening. This was just a free flow of information. Because, as my grandma used to say, what are you gonna do with the information? Where are you gonna die? Where you're only here for a short time, and what impact are you gonna leave here? Right? You're here to do good, and you do good you should do. And so for me, it was just a part of growing up. You always saw mom cheering. You always saw bringing up people in. If I had a friend who was in trouble and they needed some place to stay, I could bring me home. I knew that. I did that often, right? I've had friends stay with us weeks on end because they were having a problem at home. Mom, she didn't really used to question it too much. She used to be like, when they're ready, they can tell me. And then we sorted out and tell her, and she would sort it back out, and then the problem would be solved, and the child would go back home and whatever. So it was just something that happened with us. It wasn't something that I decided I would do. It was something I was doing. When I really started the business, I was in journalism, and so I was seeing certain patterns happening over a course of, was there for like a decade, right? So over the course of that decade, I saw patterns happening. I saw us changing from a traditional diet into more first world diet, and then the diseases coming along with that. Even though we're a smaller nation, we don't have the access to all the medical advancement, but we're getting the diseases simply because we're eating the same way. And I had a solution in my family for what I was seeing. I had stats, right? Because I was covering crime, I was covering health. My mom was in the military, she was covering HIV. So I had a lot of data. I had a solution. And so I pitched the idea to my mom. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I think we can do. Can I use family legacy recipes to create my solution? And she really challenged me on the idea. She didn't say yes right away. She challenged me on the idea. How would it work? How would I fund it? How would I reach people? She really made me think about not just the impact, but the pathway, right? Because yeah, you want to do good, but we live in our society that way, right? Where we tend to see outside before we see inside. And so I really had to think of those ideas and concepts and how would I get my idea across to the people who needed to hear it, who needed to use it. I might not necessarily have been able to go directly to them, of course, you know that, right? So I had to figure that out as well. So it wasn't just about having a big idea and then I'm just starting. I had to be really strategic about how I was creating, how I was presenting, how I was approaching, how was I speaking to people, right? Fortunately for me, I always knew I wanted to be in business. It was my goal for my 30th birthday to have a business, right? The business idea wasn't solidified exactly what it was, just that I would be doing that, right? I wouldn't be working for anybody by my 30th birthday. And so when I hit 29, still working for someone, I was like, okay, no, this can't work. I'm running out of time. And so I really went into it full force and did the plan, did the challenges mommy put forth for me, launched big sale, raised money, she matched it, went in full force. I just jumped, right? It just jumped in and it worked, right? So it was really good that she really challenged me in the way that she did. I think because she did that at the very beginning, a lot of what might have stalled me over the years didn't, because I already had solutions to those issues early on because of the challenges my mom put me in the very beginning.
That I love to hear you speak about your mother because I was just looking at definitions of the types of words that come to mind whenever you speak of her, and one of them is guru, which, as you know, is a Sanskrit term for mentor, guide, expert, or master of a certain knowledge or field. But then it's even more than that, because it's having the knowledge and having the mastery, but then also, as you just described, the way in which because I often wondered that, and as you said it, I thought, how did I never ask Anna this? When you just said that you asked your mother for permission, using my word, not yours, but permission to use the family recipes, and that she challenged you on that, because it definitely popped to my mind on more than one occasion whether this was something that is often kept within families and shared in the organic way that you described for a reason, but then taking it to make it into a business. So sharing it, but sharing it in a completely different way. I imagine that there may be some families within which this is not necessarily embraced. So the fact that your mother challenged you to make sure that you did it in a way, I'm feeling that you did this in a way that respected the integrity of all the generations that went before, and not so much from a position of making sure that the remedies were right and so on, because you already know this, you've already tested them, but making sure that it is done in a way that nobody else could exploit perhaps what had been handed down in generation. Because I remember many moons ago being engaged in discussions on sensitizing people, for example, to when there was a period where you'd have a lot of visitors would come in and they would have conversations with elders in communities about herbal remedies and so on, and then publish what they'd learned from the dialogue, from the conversation. And some people may not have a problem with that because you're very willing and excited and happy to share your knowledge, and if the person uses the knowledge in that way, you're comfortable with it. But you need to know, and it wasn't always the case that people knew that this was what was going to happen with the dialogue, the conversation, the learning, that type of thing. So I think, there's a lot that we could unpack just in that one moment. I wrote it down when when you asked, can I use family recipes? It's so much more than just asking for the use of the recipes. And I think that the way that you described how that panned out in the dialogue is really beautiful also for our listeners who may have sort of legacy remedies or legacy experiences, that they see another avenue through which they can expand it, make it available. And another thing you shared that triggered a memory for me too was you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong in my hearing of it, but you mentioned that growing up, your mom or your grandmother would grow vegetables, plants, and so on within your garden, but also outside. Not so? Is that what you were? Yeah. So that other people could have and you could have. Is that the right thing?
No, my great grandmother, which is my mother's grandmother, she was a farmer, so she would farm in the hills, and then she would come back with whatever she harvested, and then they would share it out.
Okay, because I was speaking with a friend of mine who was explaining that his father, or I heard a friend of mine sharing a story, I think, about his father planting banana trees in a place where the bananas will grow and other people walking. And he said to his dad, he said, but, Daddy, why you plant them here? Because people walking down the road going to be able to pick your bananas. And he said, yeah, exactly. That's why I planted them there, so that I can get and they can get, My dad has a garden, and they have a garden inside, and he also has a garden outside. And his thinking is similar. If people pass by and they get, but they leave between him, people, and then all of the animals that might want to share as well. But if everybody gets, everybody wins,
Along the fence as well. What goes over the fence is for the people passing.
Yeah.
That's community.
Yeah. And that is really an exceptional way of living. And it's something that perhaps we do so naturally that we don't even notice it until we perhaps migrate and it's not, we are in different spaces where it's not quite like that, and it may even be a crime not only to pick the fruit of others, but it also may be a crime, because this boggled my mind a bit when I saw that in some places you are not allowed to grow vegetables in your front garden. So there's some type of covenant or something like that would prohibit you from growing food that you can eat in the front, because the front is just for lawn or something, along those lines. So yeah, so it's, in fact, when I was at Shadwell one day, I was weeding, and I'm pulling up everything that to me appears to be a weed, because I want my pretty flower bed, I want the flowers to be beautiful. So I'm like, oh, these weeds, they're really killing me here, So I'm just weeding, and this guy came by, and a couple of guys came into the shop, and they said to me, one of them said to me, he said, well, why are you pulling up all the good things? I said, no, see the flowers. I said, my flowers they're good. I'm leaving those. And he's like, no. And then he started to show me the purpose. He started to speak through the medicinal value of every single thing that I had pulled up to discard. He said, the thing you're leaving is pretty for you to look at, but you can't eat it. You can't do anything for you. But that thing, all the stuff that you're pulling up, it has some value for your digestive system, for your, muscles, for your mind, and all of that. And one of the things that I think it would be important for us to speak through as we get ready to go into our second hour as well is that one of the challenges I know some medical professionals have expressed to me is that when this knowledge is not passed down in the right way, then there's a high risk. So 2 stories on that count, just to give you an idea of what I mean when I say that, is I recall one day, again, I was at Shadwell, and a lady passed by and asked me if she could have a petal from the flower of the banana tree. So I said, well, okay. And I asked her what she was going to do with it, and she said, well, it's good for kidney stones. And I said, oh, really? I said, and somehow along in the conversation, it got to be, how she knew this, was it passed down? Has it worked? And she told me that she saw it in the phone. I said, what do you mean in the phone? She said, she's pointing at her phone. She said, in the phone, I saw it in the phone. And I said, but what did you watch? Like, you mean like in a video, or she said, yeah, the woman in the phone, she said, if you drink it, then it will deal with your kidney stones. And she was going to go home and boil it and drink it. Now, perhaps it does, but perhaps it doesn't, because I'm not sure the source of the knowledge, and that's something that I think we have to be kind of careful with as well, and that's why it's important having dialogue like this and showing our listeners and sharing with our listeners also, whom within our community are people that we can trust, are practitioners with knowledge that we can go to ask information. In my own experience also, when I was undergoing radiation therapy in Trinidad, I met some lovely people who are also on the same similar journeys. Everybody's journey is different, but we were all there for radiation is what I mean. And one lady was very generous and was sharing with me that she had been told by a friend about eating apricot seeds to help fight cancer. But she did tell me that it also has cyanide in it. So, but her friend has been taking it for a long time, so she started to take it as well. And I was like, oh, and I said, you told the doctor about it? He said, no, you don't tell the doctor about these things because, they're going to tell you not to do it, but this is a good healing thing. So she gave me several to try if I wished, but she encouraged me to do my research. But from what I read, it's extremely dangerous. So these are some of the risks, I think, sometimes when we have a lot of information is not synonymous with knowledge. So we have a lot of information that's available to us. But if we're not seeking knowledge from the sources that can actually give us knowledge, then we can end up in some very dangerous situations. So we have to take a little pause, hear from our wonderful sponsors for the first hour, because we're about to transition into our second hour when we have a whole set of new and wonderful sponsors. Can you imagine? So Creative Voices, the engine is running based on the wonderful, kind generosity of these companies in our first hour, Rams and TDC. So we're going to take a pause. We're going to come back. We've just scratched the surface, listeners. So continue the journey with us as we return for our second hour of Creative Voices.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
More than 42 million cars from 19 different car companies are being recalled for faulty airbag inflators. Repairs are fast, easy, and free. The problem isn't with the airbag, it's with the airbag inflator. Because the inflator can rupture, shooting shrapnel through the airbag, which can cause serious injury or even death. Don't risk it, fix it.
Please contact TDC Automotive Division to find out if your Toyota vehicle is affected by the Takata airbag recall. Visit or call us at 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis.
Tea time, calling night, noon and morning. Tasty biscuit, just can't resist it. Tea time, calling night, noon and morning.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
All right, welcome back to Creative Voices. We are here in studio with Nadia Mills and Anastasia Elliott. I am your host, Sarah Owen, and we are speaking about health and wellness, healing practices, heritage healing, pelvic floor wellness, all kinds of exciting discussion topics here today. So to pick up on where you left off, Nadia, a bit when you were getting into more specific details about your current advocacy work. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I have to confess that until I saw the flyer and until I saw some of your recent videos, I really wasn't aware of pelvic health advocacy. What is that and why is it important?
Well, like you said, we go through life. There's a lot of things that we experience for mostly women. It affects men as well, but the majority of persons affected are female. And we go through life and we have experiences. We go through puberty, we go through pregnancy, we go through menopause, and we have experiences that are very common and we think are normal. And so we suffer through them because it's happening to everybody, or it's happening to us and we don't hear anybody else talking about it. So it must be normal. And for years, medicine was very much focused on men and what men need and what men need to feel good and feel virile and all that stuff. And women were just like, what you're experiencing is a part of being a woman. And so pelvic floor health, it's something that has been present. This is a traditional thing as well, but we don't talk about it because our pelvic area is this area that is just so taboo. And like I said, everybody's like, oh, everybody leaks, everybody has pain, that's normal. It's common, but it's not normal. And so my advocacy, like I said, is when I got trained, I was like, well, this person has this person has this. Like everybody was experiencing this because we all feel like it's normal, but really there is a much easier path to life. There's a lot of things that we can do to improve the quality of our life. And because we don't talk about it, like I am not a social media person. Like I will tell you, it's like it's a struggle.
I'm surprised to hear that.
Something. I
She's doing well now.
Yeah.
Girl, trust me. I'm like, okay, I gotta do it. So, because my thing, like you said, it's a calling, Sarah. It really is. Because I need people to know this. And even like I say I'm a pelvic floor therapist. What's that? I tell them like, oh, okay, yeah, my friend. It's like it affects so many people, and they're like, oh, you could do something about that. I'm like, yes, you can. And I was trying to say to you, I wanted to go back to what you were just saying because it's so important that we have all this access to information right now, and so much of it is so misleading. And that is the danger of like having unregulated information out there. So there's a lot of pelvic floor information out there. You can jump online. It's like, how do you do a Kegel? How do you do this? Blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it is misleading and a lot of it is not appropriate for people who are seeking help. And so I am like making my little effort to educate because there's just so much we don't know about our own body. And like you say, we just take whatever somebody says and we like, oh, well, let me do it. For example, for that, like a lot of people like, oh, if you have a problem, do Kegels. A lot of people who come to me like, oh yeah, I do 100 Kegels a day. I'm like, stop. That's making the problem worse. So there's so many things we don't know of just how our body functions, what is actually there. And so it's my calling. I'm going to keep using your word. It's my calling and mission to just kind of get it out there to everybody. And like I say, especially our people, because we're the ones that are the most secretive. We're the ones that are the most uncomfortable with the topic. And we're the ones that suffer the most. And so really, that's what's putting me out here. Like, girl, I didn't have Instagram.
Is that right? But you're very good at it. But I find that you're so good at it that this is so completely surprising to me. But and it's very interesting what you're saying. So I even had to look up what is the pelvic floor. So if we can just kind of take it a step back and tell our listeners what is that. So we're looking at you just mentioned a few things that we might think, oh, that's normal. That's just part of being a woman. And I'm in a couple of group chats where friends are sharing because as we as you approach menopause. But for me, I have been somewhat induced into menopause because of the therapy that I'm on. So it's a different journey, but it is still very taboo, a lot of the discussion. So even when you sent me your notes and I'm reading through them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't talk about this on the radio. I kind of,
I
like
sense that.
pelvis
That's why I
and
said it
poop
to
and
you.
all that stuff. I'm like,
To your
oh,
awareness,
so
yeah.
yeah.
I intentionally did that so that would be in your mind. So
Yes.
even if we didn't talk about it, it would be in your mind.
It's important to talk about. So, I'm glad that you did. And I'm glad that you're having the conversations because they're important. But I find it interesting just reflecting on my own initial, thought process as well. And I remember having a friend send me something that she said, oh, you can get this for one of those issues that you have. And I was like, she said, I ordered it online. And I was like, oh, ordered it online? So you went up to the customs people and you cleared this thing and they saw what you brought in? I'm not doing that. I'd have to go in like incognito in some pharmacy in some remote part of the world. And then, so I think that, and I'm sharing this on air because I don't think I'm alone in this feeling. So I think that there are probably many listeners who are thinking, okay, I'll listen quietly along. I'm not going to call in. I'm not going to ask questions or post a comment, but I'll listen. And that's why it's important as well that, again, when we have these conversations, people know then, Nadia, that if they want information that will help to make them understand better and for them to gain knowledge, they can follow you because you are 20 years in the physical therapy field, and you're also a pelvic floor therapist, and you have, because that's another thing that I find is very important as well. When I came on air in October with Dr. Osborne, who has a program on WinFM as well, and she also happened to be my surgeon, I found it very interesting because she shared statistics specific to the Caribbean or specific to women of African descent, women of Asian descent. So we tend to also look at a lot of the information that is readily available or global stats. It really leans towards maybe white male, or it leans towards a group that might not be reflective, and it's the realities may be slightly different. So it's also important to seek knowledge from practitioners in your field and in your space. And I remember when my daughter was very young, she had something on her skin, and I took her to a dermatologist in Barbados who's Grenadian, and he told me what it was. But he said, I could prescribe you the cream that is normally prescribed for this, but I've been doing a lot of research on Caribbean children because our climate is different and their skin composition is different. So he was creating a remedy that worked a lot better for children in the Caribbean, for children of different ethnic groups and so on, as opposed to that one size fits all that is in a size that might not fit us, So, and us I'm using loosely because obviously, there are lots of different us's in the Caribbean space, but just to acknowledge that these things are very important when we go about finding information. It's not just about reading whatever we see. And, that's where I think, AI is very useful, but it's also a bit, you have to be very careful with it, of course, like all technologies, because all it's doing is mining data. So it will just spit back to you what's out there on this particular topic, but you have to click on all those links to find out where it got it from to make sure that it is something that is reputable, So this is really important stuff. And if you could just then tell us, Nadia, what is your pelvic floor?
Oh, can the viewers see me?
Those who are online, those who are watching online, they can, but you're still going to have to use what you described you used in COVID with your words and language, because we also have listeners who are tuning in via radio who are going to only hear what you're saying. So you'll have to do you're going to have to do a blend of both.
All right. Well, for those of us who can see, I will try my best. Okay. So our pelvis, so the area that we call our hips, our hip bones. Usually when you look at a skeleton and you see that area, there's a huge hole at the bottom of what we call our hips, right? Everybody could agree on that?
Yeah, I'm with you so far.
Empty,
I'm with you so far at the hips.
There's this huge hole at the bottom of our hip bones. So up until recently, I thought that's just what it was. It was a huge hole out there, right? Seems pretty normal, but apparently there's over 20 something muscles that fill that hole, and that is the pelvic floor. So right now, each of us, if we're sitting down, we're sitting on our pelvic floor. So if we shift back and forth, we feel the two little bony points. Like if we sit too long, we feel like a little burning on the our butt bone, as we call it. Okay, those are the 2 points. So the pelvic floor muscles stretch from end to end or side to side, and then to the front, and then back to our tailbone. Now, a lot of us call that triangular bone our tailbone. That's not our tailbone. If we go all the way down, like if you're in private and you want to actually feel this, if you go all the way down your tailbone and come to the end, you might feel a little bit of tenderness where we actually have our tailbone, which is called the coccyx. So it's a very tiny bone. And so the pelvic floor runs from the front of our pelvis to the back and from side to side. And it fills up that huge gap that we all see on a skeleton. And the main things that it's responsible for, so it helps to control the exit of urine and feces. So it controls our bowels and bladder. It is also part of our sexual system. So whether you have a vagina or a penis, and I hope I can say that,
I think so. I'm not getting any flags from the production team, so I think we're okay.
and these are words that we need to be comfortable with. So even that, like people like sometimes like I say that and they're like, I'm like,
Yes.
it's the word, just like nose and elbow and mouth. It's a part of our body, right? So our sexual organs, it is the muscles that are involved in our sexual organs. So it is involved in orgasm. It's involved with sexual arousal, and it's involved with birthing. And so all of those things that are vital to life is what our pelvic floor is responsible for. The other things, again, our pelvis, like I like to talk about the skeleton as like our framework, our foundation. So the pelvis is like the foundation of our house, and those muscles help to adjust the pelvis. And I always say, if your house foundation is crooked or broken or something's wrong with it, the rest of your house is not going to function right, right? You might find the door doesn't close good. You can't close the window. You might hear squeaks and creaks and all kinds of things. So if your foundation isn't leveled or functioning properly, you're going to have issues in the house. You're going to have issues in your body. The other thing that it does is it helps with your circulation for your legs. And so a lot of times, we have swelling issues and stuff, and we don't realize that, again, there's too much congestion in that area in our pelvis. And so it helps with drainage, our blood circulation. It helps with support. It has sexual function. It has elimination function. And I'm missing one. There are 5 of them. That's terrible.
It's going to come back to you before the end of the program. It will come back to you.
It's like I say, it's part of the very survival system or the critical function systems in our body. And so it's amazing that we don't even know about it. And like I said, up until I started studying pelvic floor health, I didn't even realize that that was all there.
And what prompted you to study that? What?
Oh, Sarah.
Okay.
Well, in my old age, I got pregnant, right? And me, I'm a minimalist. I'm like, oh, women have been doing this forever. It's like I don't need to go do nothing, no special nothing. I don't need no epidural. I don't need none of that. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna push out the baby, and that will be it. Well, that wasn't it. Okay, and so that's the thing. Like most women, we encounter pelvic floor dysfunctions through birth or through pregnancy. And so my pregnancy itself was fantastic. You would be jealous. I'd never had morning sickness. I had no problems. They wanted to check me for everything because I was geriatric, no diabetes, no high blood pressure, none of that. But the birth itself, and that's where, again, a lot of times it's important that you go through experiences. The birth itself, I'm like in the birth, I'm like, they telling me to do stuff. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm literally there laboring. I'm like, why are they asking me to do that? Why am I in this position? There's no. So my therapist brain or my why brain just kept going off during the birthing process. And it was terrible, honestly. And I think it was actually pretty standard in terms of what people experience for birthing. And so from that, there was a lot of birth trauma, which again, most people will think is normal. And I developed several pelvic floor dysfunctions from giving birth. And like I said, my pregnancy, beautiful, no problems up until that one moment, that experience. And that changed my life. because I now realize what a lot of women experience. I'm like, okay, so my grandmother, 80 something, 90 something, had incontinence. I was 40, and I'm like, no, 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 this can't be happening. This is not, and I'm going to be even more graphic. It wasn't just urine incontinence. I also had fecal incontinence. So that was even worse. I'm like, no, I'm too young to be having these kind of things to, have to wear Depends and have to be, embarrassed or concerned every time I'm out somewhere whether or not I'm going to be able to control my bladder or my bowels. And fortunate for me, where I was, so I worked with a lot of cancer patients before. I did lymphedema therapy, and I worked an hour away from where I lived. And now with a newborn and so forth, I was like, well, I cannot go back to that job. And I was looking for a new job, and I met a therapist, a lymphedema therapist, and she's like, we're hiring, but we want someone to do both lymphedema and pelvic floor. I'm like, oh, sure, no problem. Little old ladies, that have incontinence. And then I go into the classroom, and they show me this. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, I cannot recall. We did a whole entire dissection of a cadaver in physical therapy school. And I'm like, I don't remember us going there. So this pelvic floor thing was actually new to me after being a therapist for like over 15 years. I'm like, I've never seen these muscles. I had no idea. And then we go through the list of dysfunctions, conditions that happen. And I'm like, are you serious? All of this stuff happens and nobody's talking about it and nobody's doing anything about it. And so honestly, it just like, I'm like, and like I said, I started kind of like, I know this, I know this, I know this person, I know this person, I know this person. I'm like, everybody is out there and everybody says this, we're suffering in silence, not knowing that there are solutions to the problems that we're having. And then the thing is, we're like, oh, that's common. But when you, like you said, when you actually come and you start addressing it, a lot of people, like I said, I always have a box of tissue because it affects people emotionally, it affects them socially, it affects them physically, mentally. These are things that we're coping with, because everybody like it's normal, but it literally affects how we live our lives and how we relate to people. And so it's super important that, like I said, the thing about me, like on my channel, everybody's like, well, you're kind of boring. I'm like, I'm trying.
Really?
It's like, I need to like, I'm not going to go on there like, oh, these are the 5 exercises to do, da, 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 da. I'm like, no, you actually need to know first what's there, what happens to it. Then we can talk about exercises. And then I'm the person that does free consultations. I don't want you to go and try something that's just out there because, like I said, each person needs a specific course of action. And so it's just super important that we actually learn the basics. And honestly, the thing I want to do is to go throughout the Caribbean, go throughout Africa, everywhere there's a minority group. I just want to share this information so that first we learn about what is in our body, how it's supposed to function, how to take care of it so that we can kind of eliminate the issues that we're dealing with, that millions of women are dealing with presently.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of normalizing. I listen to you and I smile because I suppose a lot of these things we don't talk about, but we also feel, as you said, it's just part of life. In fact, I know that I have sometimes used, and I go to cricket or events or somewhere, there's a long line for the bathroom. I would kind of use it in a way to try to get to the front of the line because I will get to the bathroom and I say, hey, look, please, I need to go further up the line because I had 3 children in 3 years and I can't stand up in this long line for the bathroom. And then somebody would say, yeah, well, I have 6.
Okay.
So like, oh, okay. But it's just, and we laugh and we smile and we just accept that this is what it is. But also what I was thinking about as you spoke and as you gave us the kind of walkthrough of, exactly all of the components of a pelvic floor, that as we have transitioned, a lot of people have transitioned, and Anna, you may see this popping up because I know, people come through our store at Bougainvillea often to look for remedies that they're really looking for you. So I get a sense of some of the things that people are asking for as well. But you may be seeing more of this popping up as well in that the jobs are very sedentary now. So a lot of people are sitting. I know that was a big problem for me because I was working in an online environment for several years and I would start meetings. I could start meetings, let's say as early as 8:30 in the morning, and I could have meetings that would be starting at 9 p.m. on the same day because of zone differences. And everything that I'm doing requires me to sit at a computer and to speak, but in a virtual sense, or to type. And but there's nothing really. So the bottom half of my body is only moving when I get up to go to the bathroom, to eat, to cook, and to come back and sit down. So I imagine that. And then I had a lot of pain issues in my whole body, and much of it seemed to be stemming from what was happening in my back, as you spoke about earlier, kind of starting with that alignment. And Anna, have you seen more of that in terms of people who are coming to you as well? And is that part of what maybe inspired you to join forces with Nadia and create a space for the type of healing that you envision in April at the retreat?
I met Nadia because I was searching for a solution for a problem that I was having. Right? I was in a traffic accident when I was 4. Car hit me in the back, dragged me about a mile or so. Um, and so I grew up from then to now with severe headaches, back pain. So I always associated those two things with to the accident, right? Because I wasn't treated as I should have been because I was conscious when they took the car off of me. My sister was there, her foot was broken in 12 places. So she was the priority. I was not, right? They didn't realize that there was actual issue until about maybe 6 or so weeks in when I started to black out. By then, it was too late to do anything for me. So I just associated those pains to a byproduct of the accident. It wasn't until I went to a function Nadia was speaking at that my cousin had posted as a PT doctor,
Physical therapist.
and I realized that something else could be happening. Um, and so I approached her. I told her that I would listen to her speak, and a lot of what she was talking about, I'm experiencing, and I thought it was the accident stuff, but maybe it's not. So I would like to work with her and see if it's something that I could actually solve, right? And she was heading back she was heading back home. So we did all of that work virtually.
Wow.
And then she ended up working with my mom and my daughter as well. And we're able to solve those problems for everybody. Um, and going through that process and then just thinking back on a lot of the issues that come through the door, like people come to the door and they talk to me about things that they're experiencing. And I thought, you know what? This is another solution to another problem that I'm seeing, that I wasn't paying attention to because, like everybody else was saying, maybe it's other things that is happening, things that they're doing. Um, because with how I work, with how I learned to work with natural products and natural medicine and herbs and all of that, I learned the danger first before I learned to do the good, right? I
Okay.
learned that you can mix two.
Oh,
Oh, I think that
she
we've
froze. Yeah.
lost you a little
Seeing
bit,
you're
Anna.
making it
Okay,
tough, you
we're back.
end up making something harmful, right? So I learned that first before I learned how to create medicine.
Can you repeat what you learned, Anna? Because you froze a little minute there, so we
So I'm
didn't
saying that
hear
in
that
the way
you.
how I was taught, okay, in the way how I was taught to work plant with plants, I learned the danger
Okay.
before I learned how to use them to correct or to help, right? Even the stories that I've been told about how we operate here in St. Kitts as a people, I was taught that we used to use plants as poison, when there's riots and there's stuff happening and
Yep.
ships are passing and we're trying to help cut the island up. We send our food to the ship because we're supposed to, with British colony, and we mixing things in there for them so that when they reach up there, they can, we go.
Yeah.
Right? Those are a part of our fabric here in
Yeah.
St. Kitts and Nevis, right? I learned those things, right? And so for me, when I hear people tell me, oh, they see something on the phone and they're going to try it, I'm usually like, are you sure you really want to do that? I try to caution them because
Yeah.
you also have to look at you're raised when you're working with plants as well. Because I could eat something and I'm fine. Somebody from another race eats it and it harms them,
Right.
right? So you have to factor those things in as well. That's how I was taught. And I'm always concerned when people tell me this is something on the phone and they're going to try it.
Oh, I'm always concerned as well.
I'm always concerned by that.
And Sarah, I
And
want to
then,
add into that the way that we like mesh perfectly. So I'm coming from the physical aspect of the body, but our body is a whole unit. A lot of times, current medical practices separates us. You go to the ear doctor, you go to the eye doctor. They separate you, and they never consider the holistic effect of what's happening in your body. So your body is mind, body, spirit, plus what you put in it. And so one of the things that Anna addresses, which also affects women a lot, is issues with hormones. And so people are surprised. So, and you mentioned menopause. So there's a lot of challenges with changes in hormones with menopause. People don't realize that stress. So let's start with that. Stress affects our hormones. Our hormones trigger signals in our body and tells our body what to do, and can cause a lot of dysfunction. So the beauty of what we're bringing together the very physical aspect. We're also bringing together the hormonal or chemical aspect and the mindfulness, because to really be in good health, you need to pay attention to all of those areas. And so that's the beauty of what we're doing together for this retreat.
Excellent. But I actually want us to continue the discussion on mindfulness. In particular, when we come back from the break for our second hour, we have the wonderful sponsors in Horsfords. So try Horsfords first. Horsfords has a lot of options, a lot of opportunities for us. If we want a new car, if we want a wonderful toothpaste, if we want something from the pharmacy, if we want lumber to build our beautiful new home, Horsfords has us covered. Also, in this second hour, we have Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, and there's a lot happening at Bougainvillea this month. So we're partnering with Alliance Francaise on Caribbean Her Stories on the 10th of March at 7 p.m. at Alliance, so you can check that out. We also have a very interesting interview on Friday, the 20th of March. That's at Shadwell Great House. It's going to be screened, and it is with Charles Jeffers, and it explores this Nivision Bermudian story that we don't hear enough about. And I conducted the interview, so I can tell you this is something to look out for, because it was absolutely enlightening, and it also helps that Charles is an exceptional storyteller. So that is being done in partnership with New Age, and they did the video production. So we have that coming up, and our book club is gathering at the end of the month as well. So we will be sitting under the banyan tree and sharing our views and impressions on our pick. This month we are journeying story-wise to Cuba next year in Havana. So there's a lot happening, and our social media pages has a lot of that information, all of that information available. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after this break, and we're going to start exploring how some of these concepts of mindfulness connect with our physical well-being and that interconnectedness between the two, because I think historically we've always thought of them as two very separate things, but we know so much better now. And when you know better, you really ought to do better. So we're going to take a break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM. We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
Build with us at Hostels Building and Neva Centers. We don't just sell materials, we help you build your dreams. Whether it's a new home, a renovation, or a DIY project, we're here to make it happen. That's why we say, build with us. From foundation to finish, come to our stores where we have the best in building materials, hardware, tools, paints, expert advice, and more. Whatever you need, you can count on us. So if you're ready to get started, build with us. With Hostels Building and Neva Centers, you're not just building a structure, you're building a future. Let us help you create something amazing. Dream with us, plan with us, grow with us, build with us. Come build with us at Hostels Building and Neva Centers today. Build with us at Hostels.
Welcome to Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, where every visit is a journey through time and imagination. Step into a world of literary wonders at our boutique bookstore, where every book tells a story and every corner holds a treasure waiting to be discovered. Immerse yourself in the enchanting aromas of our scented candles, perfect for creating a cozy atmosphere in any space. Explore our exquisite handcrafted jewelry. Whether you're searching for the perfect gift for that special someone or simply indulging in a little self-care, Bougainvillea Books and Gifts has something for everyone.
Welcome back to Creative Voices. We have on today's program Anastasia Elliott, Nadia Mills. I am your host, Sarah Owen. We've been having some very interesting conversations about health and wellness, about moments in life that are life-changing and the importance of gratitude for those moments. And we have been learning a lot about our pelvic floor and having some important conversations that we don't have often enough. And all of this is really spurred on by the flyer that I saw for the Sunrise and Stillness Weekend Like No Other. And I understand that Anna has a little something special to share with us on that note. So Anna, over to you.
Yes, so Sunrise and Stillness is coming up on April 35th at Belmont Resort. And we're happy to share that our prices have come down quite a bit, thanks to a sponsor that we were able to bring on board. And so your day passes are now down to, I think, about $200 EC, right? So you can come to the retreat for as little as $200. The full weekend activity where you're there for every single thing. I think that one is $750. It's down to $750 EC. And so it's affordable now, right? I know before the price was easier, and we worked and see how we could get that done for everybody. So if you've been thinking about coming and when it has been easier, prices have been slashed tremendously thanks to our sponsors. So you guys, the door is open, right?
All
So,
right. That is great news. And for anybody who was watching that space, you know that this is a serious slashing of prices. So they are down considerably, and it promises to be something really quite fantastic. As we know, that venue, Belmont Sanctuary Resort, it's absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. And if they want to find information, just let people know where they can go, because there's quite a lot of additional information that's not on the flyer that tells you what each package is, what's included in each package and so on. Where can people find that information?
yeah, so you can go to the website Sunrise and Stillness .level.app. You can get to it by just searching Sunrise and Stillness. That will take you there. Go to our social media pages. Yafin, easy to find. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Our website sugartownnatural.com. You can find information there as well. So anywhere where you normally would find me, you will find information about Sunrise and Stillness.
All right, so we can follow Anna's pages, and we can also grab our tickets at sunrise and stillness stillness. Is that right?
Sunrise.stillness@lovable.com.
Oh, sunrise.stillness@lovable.com. All right. So that is where we can go to get these tickets. And Anna has just shared with us the new prices, which are EC $200 for the day pass and EC $750 for the retreat. Correct?
For the full weekend.
For the full weekend. That's including the
So
stay?
you have different prices. So you have like if you just come, if you can only come for that day, you can do a day. If you can only just do the 2 days or 2 half days, I think that price is $395. And then the full weekend, you do everything, is $750.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we have that news hot off the press. So thank you very much, Nadia and Anna, and thank you for the work, because you're saying that as the end product that we're celebrating, but I am very sure that a lot of negotiation went into making that possible. So thank you all very much for the work that you did to enable access to more people. So that's
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah, we want everybody to be able to access this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So again, you see how the heritage community vibe that we were speaking about in the beginning is continuing and ongoing. So this is wonderful. And now in this retreat, because that's what I find very interesting about this retreat, and you know, some of these terms are becoming sort of buzz terms, you know, mindfulness, stillness, peace, calm, serenity. They're all very important. Why are they so important, and how a lot of these concepts are psychological, right? So how does that connect to the physical, so the emotional and the physical? I recently engaged in a heart healing prayer encounter. That's my word because I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's called something with heart healing, and it really focuses on how you may store trauma in a way that you need to release. But also what I learned from doing yoga therapy exercises and so on is that you can store a lot of experiences, you know, maybe traumatic experience or maybe just stressful experiences, and you can store them in a way that your body then presents them in a very painful physical form, and you're trying to solve the physical form, and you go to you do an MRI, you do a CT scan, you do all these things, and they're saying, well, nothing's wrong, and the muscles are fine, and you're sure you have a broken bone or a torn muscle or something, but all the x-rays and everything are saying, no, your body is actually great. So then you're thinking, what is going on? And I know that there is a school of thought, there's a lot of belief systems that indicate that it is that connection between the mind, the body, and soul that can really influence the pain you feel physically, not just emotionally. So what can you share with us in terms of your own experiences of why healing is both physical and emotional? And then Nadia, if there's any specific information you may want to share in terms of how that might show up in the pelvic floor, or with anything. I mean, and I know that you have, I'm kind of I'm fishing for words here so that I get it right, because obviously this is not my field. So, I want to say digestive system, but then I don't know if that's the same thing as bladder and bowel function. To me in my head, I'm making it the same thing, but that could be wrong, which is why I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. But also, and I know you have made some fantastic pickles. I'm a real advocate for your pickles because I absolutely love your pickled cabbage. It's the best thing. Even through chemo, I was like, can I get some pickled cabbage, please? Because I really love this stuff. But I know that you made it intentionally for well, this is what I remember you telling me, that it has a lot of ingredients within it that are important for our digestive health and so on. So what can you tell us about healing, that interconnected way in which our healing is often both emotional, physical, and why it's important to take time to engage in a 2-day experience like this, or a day of an experience like this, and how it can redound to your benefit, just not in terms of clarity of mind, but also perhaps in terms of ease and release of physical pain. Can you share a little bit with us on that?
Well, first thing, healing is not one-dimensional. We tend to think of healing as singular thing that we're doing, right? You're sick and you're going to take medicine, you're going to go to sleep, and you're going to wake up and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? I have a lot of people come in and they'll be like, I'm having this issue, you can give me something to do and you can I'll be fine tomorrow. And I would say, well, you got sick yesterday. Sometimes I can be that snippy. To say you have to right? Because you have to look at it as the whole of a picture and not parts of a picture. Otherwise, you're going to continually be sick because you're only looking at one small part when the picture is much bigger. And I find it difficult often to get people to look at the bigger picture because for well, usually it requires them to change, and people struggle with change, right?
Because
Especially change that feels huge,
yeah, because we're
right?
busy, Anna. We're really busy. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely take that checkbox approach, So you might say to me, okay, well, I say, well, I ate the pickle, but I still have this, I ate it last week, I had it yesterday, or I might, like when I went to the same heart healing session, she started telling me about things I needed to do next and follow-up sessions. I was like, no, but I did it. I checked the box. I had this session with you in my head. I'm like, I'm fixed now. You just tell me what's broken, if anything is broken, if I'm not broken, and then I'll we're done. And I was like, you mean I have to continue with this? I have to continue this work, So I think that maybe, Anna, is that something that you experience where people are so busy? And I think that's just for our listeners. I think those are your dogs that are barking in the background, right? They want to be in the interview as well.
Probably Captain's passing.
All right. So I'm that's just for the benefit of our listeners who may be staring out their own windows and wondering if something's passing by them. So yes. So is that what you find? Do you think then that the busyness of life, or is that part of something that is stopping people from seeing the big picture because they just want to check the box and move on?
They're busy. The way how society keeps people lazy too. There's also that issue. We are comfortable, even suffering. We are comfortable, which is sad to say. And so anything that feels like it would take them too far out of the comfort zone feels difficult. And so part of what I do in at Sugartown Organics now is to create moments that show you that it's not really that difficult to make small changes that can have huge impacts, right? Oftentimes we find it difficult to slow down, right? Like, how do if I say that, okay, sometimes you come and you may have an odor issue, right? That's something I see often. People come and they have an odor issue and they want something to get rid of the odor, something topical, so they can drink. And I'll be like, if you cut these foods out, maybe change out the underwear that you're currently using to do things. Cotton, make sure it's cotton. The lining inside is cotton. Douche less. Steam not too often. Your vagina cleans itself. You don't really need to put in anything in there, because when you do, you're changing your pH and all of that, and you're changing it up, but you're not doing anything to bring it back down. And, I mean, these are things they're already doing, but to cut back, they find it difficult. But cutting back will solve the issue. Right?
I'm listening to you.
They find it difficult, right, to do. They find it difficult to do. They just want something they can drink and it's done. And your body it's a machine, right? And you need to give it what it needs to do the work. And it's not going to work at your speed. It's going to work at its speed.
Right.
Your body's going to work at its speed and its speed only. You ain't going to faster than that. And so sometimes I have to. That's what Bam is really about. Bringing you into a space where you slow down and you realize that you're really not missing as much as you think you're missing. Right? And it didn't take as long as you think it would for your nervous system to calm down, to do that regulation so you feel better, and so that you can think. Right? Because in the calmness is where your brain actually gets to settle and think, so you can actually make the decision to slow down. Because as long as you're going and you're trying to stay on that race, you can't think enough to make the decisions that you need to be making, because you're just going to the next step and the next step and the next step and the next challenge and the next goal and the next thing. And as long as you're doing that, you're keeping your body and your nervous system on this track that is not sustainable. And you end up getting sick, you end up with cancer, you end up with all these diseases. Simply because you are refusing to slow down and let your body take time to heal. You have to, a lot of people tell you you have to sleep. You're missing nothing when you're sleeping.
You know, when I was at university, I used to say sleep when you're dead. So that is not a good thing, apparently.
With the way
Yeah.
how social media is, you're not missing anything. You're gonna come back and you make the same things here replaying. You're
Yeah.
missing it.
Yeah. But you know, I'm listening to you and I'm realizing that there's some conversations that as a mom I haven't had properly with my daughter either. And that's something that I need to correct. And so that's a big takeaway from me from this conversation is there's a lot that I'm learning for myself, but also as a mom there's a lot and there's a lot of, you know, you kind of you share the limited information that you have, but then also there's still a lot of discussion that's, and this generation is not like ours. I mean, my daughter I find to be very open about everything, and she's open with her friends talking about all these, you know, biological issues and so on that I've never spoken to any of my friends about. Only now that we're approaching menopause, we're all kind of like quietly sharing WhatsApp messages like with reels that other people are saying and not necessarily sharing what we're experiencing or we're saying. So this is all very, you know, it's timely, I think, because it allows for those of us who are mothers with daughters to make that change as well. And it's not a change that I came into the program necessarily thinking about, because I was thinking through the lens of my own education for myself as a woman and you know, as somebody who's in this space where we can share story, but also as a mom, as a godmother, as an auntie. You know, there are conversations that I can have now that I'm empowered with the right information and knowledge, because it's also not a conversation that I would want to have without that knowledge myself. So you can't impart what you don't know. So if you know more, then you can do more. So that was really a very big takeaway. And you mentioned, Anna, when you were speaking, you spoke about the nervous system, and that's something that I hear popping up in dialogue a lot, and I'm not entirely sure that I understand how that fits into the discourse on the way in which we experience pain, life, you know, whatever it may be. But I've heard references to really being cognizant of how certain things influence your nervous system. Can either of you share with us what that means?
Oh yeah, I was ready to jump in.
All right, let's go for it, Nadia. Okay, whichever one, anybody take it.
Think of a car, like a screw, right?
Yes.
It's turning, right? You turn it one way and it gets tighter and tighter. You keep turning, it keeps getting tighter and tighter, right? It will keep being the load that you're having it bear, but it will keep getting tighter and tighter and tighter, right? And what happened? You're thinking of this tightness and you're thinking it's getting smaller, right? Some people will say smaller, some people will say congested, some people you see them, right? Some people the shoulders all the way up here, right? That is your nervous system reacting, right?
So what do you
And
want?
when
Ideally, you want a loose nervous system then? You don't want to be so wound up, you want it
you want a
relaxed?
nervous system that self-regulates, that regulates itself, because all of that plays into your hormones, it plays into your moods, it plays into your sleep patterns, it plays into your eating, it plays into your physical fitness, it plays into your quality of life, it plays into how you deal with your children, it plays into your marriages, it plays into every
Oh
aspect
my
of
gosh,
it,
preach it.
right?
So it's that system that sends the messages throughout your
It
body.
sends out all the messages.
Yeah, and
So
it's go ahead, Nadia.
I wanted to add to that. So I loved it when she said your body is a machine, because I always tell people that. So this is the thing. So mind, body, spirit, they're all one thing, and they all feed off of each other. So yes, so when we look at our physical body, it is a biological machine, and it is very simple and easy to take care of it. The problem that we have is, so cognitively, the mind. So as humans, we're physically, we are animals, and people hate when we say that, but biologically we are animals, right? We need sleep, we need food, we need movement. If you look at your dog, cat, or whatever, look at any other animal and you will see how they behave because that is what the physical needs. The problem with us, because we have this huge brain, we have created so many other things for ourselves. And part of the way we live, so let's go into culture, especially here. To sit still is you ain't doing nothing, you're being lazy, you're not being productive. And so as a society, we have kind of shunned. I have had people, I'll be like, I'm like, can you take 5 minutes for yourself? Oh, but I have to do this and then I have to do this and I have to do this. I'm like, can you take 5 minutes? Can you sit here? Just like you said, just tell me, give me the medicine, give me, and so I can keep doing what it is I'm doing. The major component that we're missing is that stop, stillness, stop. It's like we're so uncomfortable, like having a weekend to come up to Belmont and not take care of kids, not do work, not, all that stuff. People like, I don't know if I could do that. You know, the other problem that we've been taught to look outside for the answers. You know, we go on social media, it's like, oh, okay, this person says this. We want medicine, we want supplements. We've been taught and conditioned to look outside. But when you come into that stillness, you recognize that a lot of the answers you already know, you've just been ignoring them. And then the other thing, when you go into stillness, you start hearing what your body is telling you. So a lot of times people's like, oh, I have this headache. I have this headache. They pop some pills. I have this headache. Your body's telling you something. A headache isn't a part of normal processing. Your body's telling you something is off. The headache could be indicating something physical. It could be indicating something emotional. You know. So you were asking about the nervous system. So our nervous system operates on two modes. You might heard of fight or flight.
Yes.
So fight or flight, resting and digesting. So we're either on or off, and we need balance. Right now, we live constantly in fight or flight. We're always on. We're always vigilant. We're always paying attention to something. We're always doing something. We're constantly going, 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 going. And like Anna was saying, is like we're constantly winding tighter and tighter and tighter and creating those loops in our minds all the time. We're not allowing ourselves that second piece of the puzzle, which is resting. Because some people, they tell me, I can't sleep. I lay in my bed and I'm thinking of all the things that happened that day, all the things I have to do. We're not shutting off. We have to get used to that part where we need that. That is not a bad thing. We need to slow down. We need to stop. And like a lot of times, like with meditation, they're like, empty your mind. Like, oh, I can't empty my mind. I have all these thoughts, all these thoughts. Because we're constantly in that go, 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 go. And a lot of times our culture tells us that's the way we're supposed to be. Just like you say, when we're in school, we're like, well, you sleep when you die. But sleep is one of the key things that actually heals our body.
Yeah.
Our bodies renew itself at night when we're resting. And so we're missing that. The other thing, a lot of hormones. So a lot of times, like people like women are very hormonal. Yes, we are. We're designed to be hormonal. Hormones give our body the signals that it needs in order to operate and function. But if we're not resting, there's certain hormones that we're not making. We're not kicking in those repair hormones where our cycles are off. It completely affects how our machine works. Right? So we're always in fight or flight. We're seldom in resting and digesting. How do we know that? A lot of times we have stomach issues. You talked about the intestines, the guts. A lot of times we have stomach upset because our body, it can't be in both. It can't be in fight or flight and resting and digesting. It's either here or there. And so because we seldom allow our body to go through those processes, we get irritable bowel syndrome, we get diarrhea, we get constipation because our nervous system is too hyperactive. When we talk about muscles, so I love what she said. She said it like in the natural way. I'm kind of giving you the science way. So tension, when you start seeing that tightness, again, your body's guarding itself. That's what we call it. And the tension doesn't just happen in your shoulders. When your shoulders, like everybody, you touch the shoulder, you feel it's rock hard because we have this tension that we're holding in our body all the time. The tension doesn't just happen in our shoulders or in our necks. It also happens in our pelvic floor. So that is also why we have issues. When your muscles are constantly on, you don't have good circulation. you start getting joint pain, you start getting muscle pain. So everything that she said, it applies in like science is now catching up with what we already knew naturally, or what we're able to observe naturally. And so the other thing, so you talked about mind and body. There's a concept called psychosomatic. So the mind producing something that manifests physically in the body.
Right.
I have known people who have become paralyzed, and they go and they get tested, and everything's fine. When you look at all the tests, everything's fine, but they can't move their body. But that is because the mind has that condition physically because it's dealing with something. And I always say our brains do things to protect us. So, for example, I have a very good friend who doesn't know how to stop, who doesn't know how to slow down. And whenever they go somewhere like out of their natural environment, they get sick. So the body's like kind of hijacking. So it's like, I need you to rest. So it hijacks.
It takes over.
So if like they're gonna go on like a 3-day trip, it becomes a 2-week trip because like, oh, I got sick and I couldn't move and blah blah blah. Your body will hijack you when it needs something, you know. And so even that, like cancer, a lot of cancer, and I know that you've had your own experience, but a lot of, if you look at the research, it is not just a physical thing. It is also that mental component that we're driving our bodies consistently. Then the diet that we're eating doesn't support what our body needs either, right?
Yeah.
So we need simple things: water, good natural food, the stuff from the farm, you know, without the pesticides and all of that. We don't need the processed foods. Like if you look at right now, colon cancer is on the rise in younger people. And one of the reasons they're seeing that is because our digestive system cannot process highly processed foods the way we process natural foods, because it's not getting the fiber and the nutrients that the bacteria in our system needs to produce the hormones that we need. I'm gonna jump in with another thing, GLP-1, this big weight loss drug that they're talking about now. Your body can produce its own GLP-1, but it needs fiber. And so because we're not eating the way our machine needs, we're not giving it the supply it needs, we're having all these issues with obesity, insulin intolerance, diabetes, high blood pressure, because we're not giving, I like to say our body's like a car, you're not giving it the right gas.
That's actually the first thing that the oncologist did when I got my diagnosis, was give me a couple sheets of paper with the things that I'm supposed to eat. And the first thing that she said was like, you know, if you want to, you know, there are things that we're going to do to, you know, kind of deal with what we have to deal with now. But for this not to come back, you have to adjust your lifestyle. And, you know, listening to both of you now, I'm smiling because I feel like I'm on your page. I feel like I know a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, but then I also realize as you speak that I'm still a very big offender. So when I go to my appointments with the doctor, sometimes she says to me, you know, I need you to slow down. And I was like, slow down? I did. I'm like totally slow to me, you know, but and I was like, why she keep telling me slow down? I'm slow. But really, and then the other day I said to my mom, I said, she came over and I said, okay, well, I was going to cook in 30 minutes, but I'll change that because, you know, I do my life in 15-minute increments. She says, what? I said, yeah, you have 15 minutes to sit, and then 15 minutes I'll do this, and then half an hour I'll do that. And if, you know, I need to rest, I'll take an hour, and then at 2 o'clock I'll do that. She said, what kind of life is that? I said, very good life. How do you get through the things that you have to do? Don't you increment? She's looking at me like a crazy person, you know? So in listening to you all, I realized, okay, well, maybe I'm I never understood why sometimes people would describe me as a little highly strung, because I think I'm very chill. But then I'm listening to you all and I realize that maybe my impression of myself, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, there must be other people who are listening who are like me and think that we're very chill and we're not. But I don't know if you can believe it, because I have so many unasked questions, so we may even have to do a repeat after the retreat, maybe with some of the attendees, and see, you know, how we continue this discussion, because it is very important. And I'm so grateful to both of you for being here, also for your patience as we worked out our technical issues in the beginning. So we're on the 12 o'clock hour, and we have the news at 12, so we're going to have to pause here. But you've given us a lot of words of advice already, so I don't need to ask you that because you have shared with us already what needs to be done. And also, for those of you who are tuned in, don't forget that the Sunrise and Stillness Retreat is upcoming. Many thanks to our sponsors, Horsefords and Bougainvillea Books and Gifts, for sponsoring the second hour of this program. Have a wonderful Friday, everybody. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
You too.
You found the sound.